We died on the way to our divorce. Not metaphorically, not emotionally, literally. Julie was in the passenger seat, screaming at me. I was gripping the wheel, staring at the highway lines, doing my best not to let her words crawl under my skin the way they always did. It was our final drive together. We were headed to the Civil Affairs Office to end 6 years of marriage. The plan was simple: sign the papers, never look back. Then she grabbed the steering wheel. I remember the screech of tires, the blur of white headlights, the jolt of impact. Silence. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in college, 10 years earlier, standing outside the dormitory building, holding a half-wilted bouquet in my hand, waiting for Julie, the very day I first confessed to her. The universe didn't send us back as punishment, it gave us a second chance, but I didn't take it to fight for her again, I let her go. In our last life, we had been married for 6 years. She used to be warm in public, cold in private. When she looked at me, I saw disappointment where there used to be admiration. I was a civil servant, nothing flashy, nothing ambitious, just steady. She wanted more. Her mood shifted after a reunion. She reconnected with her high school first love, Lawrence. Back then, he was just a memory, but 10 years later, he had ridden the tech wave, launched an AI empire, and become the richest man in the city. When Julie found out, something in her changed forever. She started comparing my government salary against his billions, my modest life against his penthouses. She stopped arguing with me, she started resenting me, and eventually, she started cheating on me. The night before the crash, she came home wearing a perfume I didn't recognize and a new bag I couldn't afford. I didn't ask questions, I just sat on the couch and waited for the explosion. It came, just like always. She didn't deny it, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "I deserve better." And maybe she did, but not once did she ever stop to wonder what I deserved. After the crash, after rebirth, I made a choice. She went her way, I went mine. She found Lawrence again, earlier this time, attached herself to him like a shadow, married into his world of spotlights and press coverage. She became his perfect accessory, elegant, adored, expensive. I kept quiet. I studied, wrote policy, passed the exam. But with 10 extra years of experience, I didn't just pass, I rewrote the game. I didn't climb the ladder, I rebuilt it. I never reached out to her, not once. But I watched from a distance. Until today. 10 years later, our university is hosting its centenary gala. Julie is here. She stands beside Lawrence on the main stage, flawless in a white designer gown, holding a donation check like it's a trophy. The crowd fawns over them, the power couple, the billionaire and his muse. And I, Arthur, walk into the room. Not as a guest, not as the man she left behind, but as the special envoy representing the capital. The one whose name makes her husband's entire boardroom stand still. She hasn't seen me yet, but she will. In my past life, I thought love was supposed to be enough. I met Julie in our sophomore year of university. She was the kind of girl who walked into a room like she owned the air itself, poised, magnetic, a smile that could convince a storm to sit still. I was nobody special, just another scholarship student buried in administrative law textbooks. She wore ambition like a perfume, every conversation of hers laced with phrases like success, legacy, high society. I fell for her anyway, hard, hopelessly. Our relationship wasn't fireworks, it was more like a quiet ember I kept alive with everything I had, my time, my energy, my patience. When she said she wanted to see Milan, I saved 6 months' salary just to get us economy tickets. When she cried over missing out on internships at big firms, I stayed up late filling out applications for her. When I proposed, she didn't cry, she simply nodded, as if she had calculated the pros and cons, and found me barely sufficient. I convinced myself that was her way of loving. We married a year after graduation. I had landed a government position, not prestigious, but stable. She took a job at a fashion house, her smile slowly vanished. So did the warm dinners, the weekend plans, the late-night laughter. She began to sigh after checking our bank account, started making comments about what her classmates were doing, what they were driving, what they were posting online. Every reunion was a dagger. Someone would always bring up Lawrence, her high school flame. By then, he was already in magazines, AI, automation, startups, IPOs, Julie would smile tightly and brush it off, but her eyes always lingered longer on the screen when his face showed up in headlines. I didn't blame her for wanting more. I blamed myself for not being enough. The day she told me she was seeing him again, she didn't cry, she simply looked at me and said, "You can. To give me the life I deserve." And then we died. We died in silence, mid-argument, in the wreckage of a car headed toward divorce. But fate had different plans. When I woke up again in the past, 10 years younger, I didn't try to win her back. I watched her walk away and let her. Because this time, I had no illusions. And 10 years later, here we are again. The university's centennial gala is held in a lavish art hall, glass ceiling, spotlights, floral displays that probably cost more than a month of my past salary. I enter alone. Plain suit, simple shoes, no brand tags. I blend into the carpet. But I feel no shame. Julie, however, is dressed like royalty. She's standing with Lawrence near the stage, wearing a silk champagne-colored gown that hugs her figure like it was stitched onto her skin. Her hair is swept up, earrings catching the light with every slight tilt of her head. Her posture screams, "I won." Lawrence is beside her, the billionaire of the city, fitted in a custom charcoal suit and a watch worth more than my entire university degree. People crowd around them, old classmates, faculty members, city officials. You two are the pride of the campus. From sweethearts to CEO power couple, what a journey. Julie accepts the praise with that carefully polished smile. Lawrence shakes hands like he's signing contracts with his fingertips. Then one voice breaks through. "Hey, isn't that Arthur?" Silence. Eyes turn, heads tilt. Julie's expression falters for just a second. Then it returns, smug, calculated, cruel. "Oh, Arthur, you're still with the government?" I nod once. "Still." She eyes my clothes, clearly cheap by her standards. "I heard you were working in administrative something. That still the case?" I smile mildly. "Still serving the public." Lawrence chuckles, not bothering to hide his disdain. "That's admirable, not very profitable, but admirable." The crowd laughs. The comments start. "I thought he moved abroad after college. He always looked average. Still single, right?" Julie leans in with mock concern. "You should have told us you were coming, Arthur. We would have arranged better seating. These events can be overwhelming for some." I hold her gaze. There's no anger in me, just clarity. I had loved this woman once, completely, but looking at her now, all I see is what I escaped. I look toward the entrance. "She's here," I say softly. Julie blinks. "She?" Before I can respond, the doors open, and Teresa steps in. A hush falls. She's not dressed to impress. She doesn't need to be. A simple cream dress, low heels, no jewelry except a thin chain at her collarbone. Her face is untouched by makeup, and yet she glows. Confidence walks ahead of her, poise trails behind, and the whispers begin again, but different now. "Who is that? She doesn't look like one of us." "No, that's her, isn't it?" Someone gasps. "That's Teresa Wren, the envoy's daughter, from the capital." Julie stiffens. Lawrence lowers his glass. Teresa's eyes scan the room, calm and distant, until they land on me. Then, she smiles, wide, warm, real. She crosses the hall without hesitation, wraps her arm around mine like it's the most natural thing in the world. "Sorry I'm late, sweetheart," she says. "Traffic at the entrance." Julie is frozen. Lawrence squints. "You know him?" Teresa turns, perfectly composed. "Of course, he's my husband." Someone drops a glass. Julie's jaw slackens. Her lips part, but no words come out. And I finally speak, voice soft but unmistakable. "I'd like you to meet my wife, Teresa, daughter of Director Wren, and a special envoy from the capital." Now it's my name that circles the room. Arthur. The same civil servant. Only, not quite. It started after the 5-year reunion. Julie came home from the event quieter than usual. She didn't complain about traffic or the wine selection, didn't mock the caterers or the event theme. Instead, she stood by the window, still in her heels, staring at nothing while the city buzzed outside. That night, she didn't come to bed. At first, I thought it was work stress. Her office was pushing for a major rebrand and she'd been under pressure, but soon, the comments began. Do you ever think about what life could have been if you'd aimed higher? I envy people who don't settle. You're content with mediocrity, Arthur. That scares me. I didn't respond. I cooked dinner. I asked if she wanted tea. I folded laundry. I reminded her of the trip we were planning to Kyoto. She ignored all of it. And then, one evening, she didn't come home at all. No call, no text. I stayed up, pacing, refreshing traffic alerts, calling her phone every 30 minutes. She walked in at 6:43 a.m. Hair tousled, lipstick smudged, and a new purse, designer, dangling from her wrist. I asked her where she'd been. She didn't lie. Lawrence. I stared at her. She dropped the purse on the couch like it was a trophy. He was at the reunion. We talked. He's doing incredibly well. His company's going public. He lives in a penthouse now, has meetings in Singapore, Seoul, San Francisco. You're seeing him again? I asked, my voice cracked and low. She tilted her head. It's not about Lawrence. Then what is it about? It's about what I want. I stepped forward, still trying, still foolish. We built a life, Julie. We have a home, a future. You wanted comfort, stability. I gave you that. Her eyes narrowed. I wanted comfort, Arthur, not stagnation. I remember that moment in complete silence, not because the room was quiet, but because something inside me caved in and never stood back up. I loved you, I said. I still do. She scoffed. Love doesn't pay off mortgages. We agreed to file for divorce after the spring festival. The office would reopen on Monday. We'd sign the papers then, but on the drive there, the conversation boiled again. I asked her one last time to consider what we had, to think before she walked away forever. She snapped, reached for the wheel. I remember shouting, tires screaming, the sound of metal folding inward, and then, blackness. When I woke up, I was 21 again. I didn't cry. I didn't question it. I simply stood up, walked back to my dorm, and began to plan. I let Julie go, let her chase Lawrence again. She did so faster this time, reconnecting within weeks. From there, she rose with him. He launched his company sooner. She quit her job and followed him into his world of luxury and cameras. The headlines called her his muse. The press called them the couple that redefined elegance. I didn't watch. I studied. Every night, while she posed for magazine shoots, I reviewed case law, wrote policy drafts, designed municipal systems that would be relevant in 10 years. I took the civil service exam with calmness I didn't have before. Passed with the highest score in the region. Was offered a capital rotation post after 2 years. And it wasn't long after that I met Teresa. I didn't fall for her the way I did for Julie. It wasn't reckless, it wasn't fire. It was something far more dangerous. It was respect, admiration, trust. Teresa believed in what I was building, even when I didn't have the title to back it up. She'd look at my rejected proposals and say, "Don't stop, these will matter one day." We married in a small ceremony, quiet, just family. I didn't invite anyone from university. But now, 10 years later, I've returned. Only because Teresa's father was invited to the university's centenary celebration, and she asked to see the campus I once called home, and now, here we are. Julie watches me from across the gala hall, her smile still fixed, her eyes no longer steady. "Arthur," she says as I pass, her voice honey-laced, "you really are something else. I didn't think you'd still be showing up to things like this." Lawrence steps forward beside her, smirking. "Still a government man?" "Still," I reply. "Must be exhausting," he says, taking a sip of champagne. "All that work for a modest salary." Julie leans in. "I always said Arthur had a noble streak. It's charming in small doses." I nod. "And I always said you had a talent for polite cruelty." The crowd chuckles awkwardly. Julie's smile tightens. Someone nearby adds, "So, you're still with the civil service?" I nod again. Julie's eyes narrow. "Still unmarried?" I glance toward the entrance. Not quite. Right on cue, Teresa enters, dressed simply, standing tall. Her presence draws eyes without effort. Whispers rise. "Is that?" "No, can't be." But then she walks up to me and kisses my cheek. Sorry I'm late, she says gently. Dad's still in the other wing. He'll be joining us soon. I turn to face the crowd. My wife, I say. Teresa Wren. Julie blinks. Twice. Lawrence shifts uncomfortably. That Teresa? Someone whispers too loudly. Wren's daughter? The air thickens. I can see the mask begin to crack. Julie's hand clutches her champagne glass just a little tighter. Her voice drops, barely steady. You're married to her? I meet her gaze. Yes. She's quiet. And in that silence, I see it. The disbelief. The regret. The realization that the man she threw away, for money, is now married into the power she chased her whole life. The voices around me blurred into one constant, arrogant hum. Laughter, wine glasses clinking, condescending smirks. It was always the same melody, just with new instruments. Still in admin, huh? You should have done something with your degree, Arthur. He always did have that humble vibe. Julie stood 3 feet away, basking in it. Her eyes flitted toward me occasionally, gleaming with performative concern, like someone checking on a harmless dog they once owned and abandoned. She stepped closer now, that familiar smirk tugging her lips. Arthur, she said, tone syrupy sweet, what exactly do you do now? Policy assistant? Filing reports? Or have you been promoted to printing paper? I smiled politely. A little of everything. She laughed, shaking her head like I'd confirmed every assumption. Still evasive. Lawrence joined in. Look, if your agency's underfunded, come work for me. I need another driver, someone quiet, professional, won't embarrass the company. The crowd laughed, harder this time. I looked at him. No anger, no heat, just a soft internal hum of awareness. I didn't need to say anything. Time had already spoken for me. Lawrence gave Julie a wink. Imagine that. Your ex driving us around, full circle. Julie tilted her head at me again. Still unmarried, right? I said nothing. They took that as confirmation. Someone behind me muttered, shame, not a bad face, just wasted potential. That one almost made me laugh, but I didn't. I just waited. Waited for the door to open. And then it did. No fanfare. No trumpets. Just the quiet click of heels on marble. Every head turned. Silence fell. Teresa walked in. No makeup. No diamonds. Just a cream midi dress and a silk scarf around her neck. Her dark hair was tied in a low, casual twist. She didn't look like someone who had money, she looked like someone who didn't need to prove it. She walked past the crowd, without hesitation. Not a glance to the side, not a single nod to the murmuring faculty, only one destination, me. Hubby, she said, voice soft but clear. I missed you. She reached out, smoothed the collar of my jacket, brushed something non-existent from my shoulder like it mattered more than the million-dollar egos watching us. Then she smiled at me, one of those rare smiles that didn't exist to be seen, only to be shared. Julie blinked. Once, then again. Someone whispered too loudly. Isn't that her? That's Teresa Wren. Director Wren's daughter? Oh my God. The shock rippled like an earthquake under crystal. Lawrence's posture stiffened. He glanced toward Julie as if silently asking, did you know? Julie's throat bobbed once before she finally spoke. You're married to her? I turned to her. Yes. She tried to recover, smiled like it meant nothing. Since when? I mean, we would have heard, wouldn't we? I don't make announcements, I said. I live my life. Julie opened her mouth again, but the panic in her eyes said more than her words ever could. Someone in the crowd chuckled nervously. Well, this is something. Lawrence looked at Teresa, trying to size her up like a quarterly projection. She's very graceful, he offered flatly. Julie narrowed her eyes at Teresa now. You're not fooling anyone. Where's the proof? Any woman can walk in and say she's what? Teresa cut in, her voice calm but slicing. The daughter of the man currently dining with the university board? Or the woman married to Arthur for 3 years? Julie froze. Lawrence's hand twitched. Teresa stepped forward, extending a hand to Julie. You must be Julie. I've heard of you. Julie didn't take the hand. Teresa didn't care. "Thank you," she said, smiling with teeth now, "for letting go of a man you didn't deserve." Julie's voice cracked slightly. "You're an actress. He paid you to say this." Teresa blinked once, then laughed, a quiet, elegant sound. "Oh," she said, turning to me, "is this your classmate, the one who threw a tantrum and grabbed the steering wheel because she couldn't handle being rejected?" Julie's face blanched. "You don't know what you're talking about." "No," Teresa said gently, "but you do." She looped her arm through mine again, then faced the crowd. "You all laughed at my husband like he hadn't grown, like the past was still present, like you hadn't heard a word from the Capitol in 10 years. Whispers now turned into pin-drop silence. "Funny thing about men like Arthur," she continued, "they don't talk, they build, and by the time you notice, they've already passed you." Julie took a step forward, voice brittle. "He loved me first." I looked at her. "No," I said. "I loved you first, but love doesn't live where there's no respect." Her lips trembled. "If you'd been this successful back then, I wouldn't have left." Teresa stepped closer to her, still smiling. "And if you had any vision," she whispered, "you would have stayed." Julie's eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. Not yet. That would come later. I gave her one final glance, not angry, not victorious, just finished. Then I turned to Teresa. "Shall we?" She smiled. "Let's." And as we walked away from the broken pieces of what once was, I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt closure. Lawrence wasn't letting it go. Even after Teresa linked arms with me, even after half the room turned into a stunned museum exhibit watching their former classmate stroll beside someone leagues above their league, he kept pushing. "I don't buy it," he muttered, just loud enough for the surrounding crowd to hear. Julie heard it too. She folded her arms and tilted her chin up, catching onto the skepticism like a lifeline. "Exactly," she said, voice a little too eager. "It's all very dramatic, isn't it? She shows up unannounced, no entourage, no verification, no one actually introduced her, Arthur just—" "She's not his wife," Lawrence declared, stepping forward now. "She's a prop." The crowd sucked in a collective breath. "A hired actress, a convenient illusion," he continued. "You wanted to humiliate us, Arthur, and this was the best you could come up with. I mean, come on, Ren's daughter is with the principal right now. She's not going to walk in here through the back door and call you hubby. Be serious." Julie visibly brightened. "I told you it didn't feel real. I could smell the desperation." Teresa didn't flinch. She tilted her head slightly, studying Lawrence like he was a bug on a microscope slide. "I didn't know billionaires were so easily intimidated," she said softly. Lawrence ignored her. "You picked the wrong woman to impersonate. The real Teresa Ren is probably walking this campus right now with her father. The daughter of the Capitol's most influential man wouldn't be standing in this hall holding hands with a civil servant." He smiled at the crowd like he'd just cracked the case. "Do you realize what kind of crime it is to impersonate someone like her?" Julie folded her arms. "He's bluffing. He always was. You can dress it up, but you're still the same Arthur." Teresa took a breath to speak. She didn't have to, because at that moment, a voice cut through the hall like a bullet of authority. "Is that so?" It wasn't loud, it didn't need to be, it had weight. Every head turned toward the entrance. Security guards entered first, forming a loose line. Behind them came a small group of faculty and university staff, flanking an older man in a tailored suit, sharp eyes, silver hair, and a presence that made every breath in the room feel too loud, Director Ren. Lawrence froze, Julie's mouth opened, then closed. The crowd parted like a curtain. Director Ren didn't stop until he stood before me and Teresa. He placed one hand gently on her shoulder, then turned his gaze to me. "Arthur," he said with quiet authority, "did my daughter find you before I did?" "Yes, sir," I said calmly. "She always does." He nodded, then turned, and his eyes landed on Lawrence. "So," he said, voice now lined with steel, "you're the one who accused my daughter of being a fraud?" Lawrence looked like a child caught cheating on a test. Sir, I didn't mean—" "You did, son," Ren snapped, tone suddenly cold and final. "You mocked my daughter. You insulted my son-in-law, and you slandered two people who've done more for the Capitol's reform proposals than you'll ever understand." Julie took a shaky step back. Lawrence swallowed. There was confusion. I didn't know. Ren didn't even blink. Ignorance is no excuse, especially from someone who supposedly leads innovation. Someone in the crowd coughed. A man near the back, a former professor, stepped forward, whispering to Lawrence's father, who now looked visibly pale. Julie's smirk had long since vanished. Her eyes darted between Director Ren, Teresa, and me like she was trying to wake herself up. Lawrence looked down, speechless. Director Ren turned again, to the crowd. I want every person in this room to remember something, he said. You all laughed at a civil servant tonight. You judged a man by his suit, by his paycheck. You gossiped and speculated because he didn't announce himself. He gestured to me. This man has rewritten more urban development legislation in 5 years than your companies could implement in a decade. His proposals reshaped 2 districts and redirected national infrastructure funding. You call him civil servant, I call him the youngest special envoy in the capital's history. No one spoke. They couldn't. Lawrence's father stepped forward now, attempting a weak smile. Mr. Ren, please, forgive them. Kids say dumb things, and Arthur, we didn't recognize his importance. That's our fault. He turned to me, hands slightly raised. Arthur, my boy, let's not let this spiral. You know we've always been fond of you. Lawrence may have been poorly informed, but his intentions weren't malicious. Teresa raised an eyebrow. Julie, as if sensing the moment slipping, stepped toward me. Arthur, she said gently, can we talk, privately, just for a second? Teresa stepped in her path. No, she said, with a polite smile that burned colder than a blizzard. You had your time. You threw away your future. I caught it. Julie's mouth opened, but she said nothing. Director Ren gave a sharp nod. I'm due with the board. Teresa, Arthur, shall we? I nodded. Julie watched me turn. She didn't call my name, not yet, but her eyes said it all. She thought she'd won 10 years ago. Now she knew she hadn't even made the right bet. The text started the very next morning. Julie. Arthur, I need to talk to you. I didn't respond. Julie. It's important, please. I turned my phone face down and poured Teresa her coffee. Julie. I made a mistake. 3 dots. A pause. Julie. I left him. It didn't matter. Not to me. Julie. It was always you. I locked my phone, not because I was tempted, because it no longer had power over me. She called later that day. I let it ring until it stopped, again, and again, and again. I wasn't surprised, not after what happened the previous night. By the time we returned to our suite from the gala, the first whispers were already spilling through the networks. Jin Group under review for undeclared assets and preferential contracts. It hit headlines before sunrise. Anonymous reports, untraceable tips, perfect timing, but the signature at the bottom of the investigation authorization, that was mine. I didn't target Lawrence. The case had been sitting in the ethics division's backlog for a while. I simply cleared the recommendation, after months of watching policy violations pile up like bricks behind a cracked glass wall. Lawrence wasn't unlucky, he was arrogant, sloppy, entitled, and now, he was exposed. By noon, the company's shares had frozen. By evening, government officials had entered Jin Group's headquarters with sealed documents and audit teams. News vans camped outside their mansion, board members resigned, employees leaked screenshots. Within 48 hours, Julie's perfectly curated world had turned into a pit of rotting headlines and scandal-ridden feeds. She tried everything, denial, deflection, even sympathy interviews. Nothing stuck. Because when power leaves a room, so does the illusion of dignity. And I had no statement to make. Not until she stood outside our hotel. She wasn't in heels now, no designer gown, just a long coat and trembling fingers that grip. A cup of coffee she clearly hadn't touched. Her eyes searched mine as I approached. Arthur, she breathed. I stopped a few feet away, Teresa at my side. Julie stared at her, then back at me. I left him, she whispered. He's not who I thought he was. I said nothing. I was wrong, she continued, stepping forward. I chose the wrong future. I was afraid. You were consistent, gentle. I thought that meant you were weak. But I see it now. I see you. Her voice cracked. You're everything I needed, everything I pretended to want in someone else. Teresa stood still, composed, watching her with the quiet confidence of someone who never needed to prove anything. I looked Julie in the eye. Have some self-respect. Her face crumpled. You still love me, you said that once. I nodded. I did. In a life we both destroyed. Tears welled up. Then why can't we start over? We've both changed. No, I said sharply. I changed. You repeated yourself. She flinched. We both died in that car, Julie. I moved on. You went back. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He said I'd regret it if I left you. I didn't believe him. I shrugged. You didn't believe me either. Silence. Only city wind between us. She tried again. Arthur, please, just talk to me. Just once. I turned to Teresa. She held out her hand. I took it without hesitation. And together we walked past Julie, toward the car. Behind us, she called out. You said I'd never be enough. I paused. Turned slightly. No, I said. You said that. I never did. Julie covered her mouth, her shoulders shook, but no sound came out. I stepped into the car with the woman who stood beside me before anyone else believed in what I could be. Before titles, before recognition, before the crowd silenced itself at my entrance, Teresa looked at me, eyes gentle. You okay? I nodded, and as the driver pulled away, I caught one last glimpse of Julie in the rearview mirror, alone in the cold, holding a coffee she still hadn't touched. The future I wanted once stood there. The one I now had sat beside me. The city lights of the capital never felt like noise to me, they felt like pulse, purpose. When Teresa and I returned, we didn't say anything aloud, we didn't need to. There was a quiet rhythm to our life here. We slipped back into it like a familiar coat, dignified, composed, grounded. Julie followed us for a while, not physically at first, but through messages. Arthur, I know I messed up. Please, can we just talk? You were right about everything, I was blind. I ignored them. She tried different numbers, emails, then anonymous calls from blocked IDs. Eventually, she showed up at a policy seminar where I was scheduled to speak. Teresa and my security team stopped her before she reached the stage. She screamed my name as they pulled her away, her voice no longer refined, just fractured. After that, I changed my number. Not because I was afraid, because I no longer needed to carry the noise of the past into the silence of my peace. Julie faded after that. No more messages, no more drama. But the media wasn't done with her. The investigation into Jin Group unearthed more than financial negligence. The deeper they dug, the more it rotted. Shell companies, fake patents, internal payouts. Lawrence was arrested during a closed-door meeting with regulators. Board members turned. Public trust collapsed. Within months, the name Jin, that once held glitz and power, was synonymous with everything wrong with unchecked ambition. Julie tried to recover her image, public apologies, charity appearances, teary interviews. None of it mattered. The world had moved on, and so had I. There were moments, quiet mornings, empty cafes, walking back from long meetings, where I'd feel her ghost brushing against memory. Not out of longing, just recognition. I used to think she loved me, but she didn't. She loved what I represented, security, a stepping stone, stability, until something shinier came along. She didn't love me. She loved the lifestyle she believed I failed to deliver. And Teresa? She loved the man before the world ever did. We met during a frustrating committee cycle. One of my regional infrastructure proposals had been tabled for the 5th time. She was new to the office then, shadowing her father's advisory team. I was just another ambitious policymaker with big ideas and no leverage. Everyone else saw wasted ink. She saw structure. When my plan was dismissed again, she followed me out of the room, walked beside me in silence until we reached the courtyard. Then she said, "They'll regret ignoring you." It wasn't flirtation, it was faith. She joined my working group weeks later. Every battle I fought, she fought beside me. When my suggestions were finally accepted, when the programs rolled out, when progress began to show, she was there, not cheering. Working. And when she finally put her hand in mine and said, "Let's build something that lasts," I knew I would never lose her the way I lost Julie. Because I never had to chase her love. She gave it freely. Now, years later, we sit side by side at a policy press conference. The media clamor for answers, microphones fill the table. One reporter steps forward, blunt and sharp-eyed. "Special Envoy Arthur, regarding the collapse of Jin Group, what's your official stance?" I lean forward. Calm, composed. "We support businesses that build," I reply, "that contribute, that lift others with them." I pause, then look the reporter in the eye. "But parasites," I say softly, "should never grow fat on the city's back." Flashbulbs explode across the room. I glance sideways. Teresa's hand is in mine beneath the table, warm, steady. I've lived 2 lives. Only one of them ever felt real.